Good morning. Here we are, a week into March, and it's a beautiful blue sky day and forecast to be that way for a few days, which is very nice and appreciated and needed. Projects wise, I'm kind of on a bit of a holding pattern at this point until we find out what's happening with the property next door. And so whilst we're in that situation, I have decided that I need to have a major revamp of my workshop. At the moment it is mostly organised shambles. I'll show you. There's kind of stuff everywhere. Now it is organised, but the issue I have is that this bit of, it's actually a very big gutter that's above here. This is the floor above, but beyond that there's an area, and that leaks when we get very heavy rain. Now I do need to get up there and sort that, but also having thought about that a bit more, I think I'm better to have all my shelving on the other wall, as in over here, because it will give me a better workspace. So that's what I'm going to do, but before I can move the shelving I need to line the wall. I need to take down some of the stuff that's hanging up from the ceiling, and generally it's going to take a few days to do it. But that's okay, because I do have a few days. Well, at this point I have a few days, but that could change. And also because we only have one functioning B&B, there's not much happening on that front either. So yeah, now is a good opportunity to actually get on and do this and make it better. And there may be a bit of throwing out of stuff as well in the process, I think. We will see. So this video will take a while to actually record, and who knows how long before it actually hits the internet, or even if it does. We'll see, but we'll film as we go and see where we go from there. I started by disassembling some very old Rimu shelving that originally came out of the original kitchen in our house. It had been used in our girls' playhouse many years ago. The reason I went to the effort of removing the nails was that I intended to cut it up for firewood for someone. It really wasn't of any use for anything else. It's a young family, and I know the children like to help with stacking the wood, and I didn't want to give them anything that was going to have hidden dangers in it. If you watch carefully, you'll see a fantail quickly come in, say hello, and then leave again. I enjoyed the fantail's little visit. Obviously it was longer in real time than what you saw on the time-lapse. The timber that was on the floor was leftover pieces from various things. It was timber I wanted to keep, and so I took that outside and put it in the wood rack out there where all those things need to go. I decided that while I was doing some little jobs that had been hanging about for a bit, that I would put some casters on the bottom of a lidded box that I had to make it into a rolly seat. The bottom of the box wasn't of sufficient strength to put the screws or casters directly into, hence the timber rails I added to the bottom. It will be a handy little sit-upon in the workshop. The reason I screwed down through the bottom of the box into the strips of wood was that A, the strips of wood were thicker to screw into, and also because I didn't want the screws poking up through into the inside of the box. they would become a liability to the fingers if I ever stored anything in the box. I decided to give the machinery a good clean as I went, so started with the saw bench and then moved on to the miter saw, and finally I also cleaned out the vacuum cleaner and the homemade turbine's not the right word, anyway, dust collector, that'll work. I didn't include that bit in the video. It always feels good to have your machinery clean and ready to go. Cyclone, that's the word I was trying to think of. The next job was to remove the wood lathe from the wall and put it to one side for now. I haven't used it for decades, in part because I could access it due to the clutter in front of it. I probably need to make a stand for it to sit on so that it's freestanding. That way I can move it in and out as and when I use it. You can see where I have got up to. There's an awful lot of stuff stored up here, and I don't really want to take that down at this point, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a frame under here, just a temporary one, to support this, so that I can then take this down and actually move everything slightly that way so that I can get the lining right up the wall, and then I can reattach it, actually slightly better support than what's there at the moment. So that'll be the next job, but right now I'm going to go and have a cuppa. Okie dokie, well, I'll see you later. The timber I used for the support for the iron shelf was old boric treated pine. As such, I drilled the holes for the screws to make my job easier when I was fixing it in place. As I've commented before, boric treated pine seems to become quite hard after a few years. I realised once I thought about it that in actual fact I don't really want a frame there, it'll be just in the way, and so it was much easier just to hang it off the roof joist, well, floor joists, whatever. Okay, we'll carry on. That's a bit disappointing. The green stuff insulation was part of a roll that I had left over from my previous job. It is nice stuff to work with, other than that it is quite hard to cut. I have tried a few different tools to cut it, but have found a good fresh blade and a snap-off blade knife is the best. The blurb on the green stuff bag says it is so harmless that you can sleep on it. I'm not planning to do that anytime soon. It is actually ceiling insulation, so more than I need for these walls, but that is what I have, and so that is what I used. As you will see, I had just enough for this job, but not without a few hiccups along the way. I still need to do the far left end of this wall, so I will have to find something else to go in there. As this building is not an inhabited building, insulation isn't strictly necessary, but hopefully it will keep the workshop that little bit warmer through the dark days of winter. You will see that getting this sheet into place became a bit more of a struggle than it should have been. It transpired that the joist at the top had a bit of a warp in it, and as such the distance from the floor to the underside of the joist varied by a few millimeters, maybe 5, 7, from one side of the sheet to the other. Once I had taken the sheet back out and trimmed it a bit, it went in quite easily. I think that's enough for today. I don't think I have any smaller clouts, but I will have a look in the morning. I just grabbed those ones because they were handy, but they're really much longer than I need. But that's okay. I haven't hit them all the way home so that I can pull them out and change them if I need to. Okay, that's it for today. Bye bye. Good afternoon. I have been in the workshop, I don't know, 3 hours, maybe slightly more. So I've filled in another sheet width with insulation and put the sheet up, and now I'm just coming to the end of this other one here, and then I will have just one more to do over here. However, I do need to put some nogs in across the top here because there is nothing there to nail the sheet to. So I'll crack on with that, and I'll just put it on time lapse, and that'll basically be it for today, I would think. It may look as though there are already noggins, or duangs if you prefer, depending on where you come from, at the top of the studs. But in fact the studs go straight up beyond the floor joist as the wall continues up to the second story. What you can see is the floor joist. You will also see that there was a bit of thinking and calculating going on to make sure the green stuff was going to stretch to fill all of the wall that are needed to fill at this point. For reasons that I don't fully understand, it seems that none of the studs were set at exactly the same spacing. In part, that will be because there had to be multiple studs together, that you can see, that are there to support the steel I-beam that spans across the workshop. It is times like this, when I'm trying to drive nails into the old timber, that I'm pleased that I invested in the nail gun. It makes the job so much easier, especially when it's overhead and into old timber. The flange around the beam projects below the level of the joists, so I needed to take a notch out of the top of the sheet to go around the flange. And that is it for today. It's dinner time. Near enough anyway. Tomorrow, God willing, I will put this last sheet in here, which comes to here. If I take it on the angle, you can see that I actually need to put a not a full stud, but I've got to fill in the gap there so that it's got something to sit against, and that will be sufficient length of wall for me to get everything that's on the shelves over here along this wall, which will be great. So hopefully tomorrow I can get the last bits of insulation in and the last board up, and then start to think about a plan of attack. I will obviously need to, well, it might not be obvious to you, but it's obvious to me, I will need to remove most of the stuff off the shelves in order to move the shelves, and so that's going to take a considerable amount of time, but that's okay. So that's it for today. Just a little snippet from today, really. Maybe I'll film more tomorrow, I'll see. Bye. Here we are. It is another afternoon in the workshop. Hopefully today I can, or this afternoon more correctly, that I can complete the insulation and the lining on the wall, and maybe even start moving some stuff around as far as off the shelves or something. Not sure, we'll see how it goes. Don't seem to be quite firing on all cylinders today, so we'll just see where that goes, but that's alright, we just got to crack on. So I will do that and take you along for the journey, well, some of it anyway. This was the first misfire. For reasons that I don't know, I cut this piece of insulation using the vertical measurement instead of the horizontal measurement. I then needed to do some recalculating as to how to cut the insulation so as to make sure I was going to have enough to complete the job. What you just observed there of me cutting a notch in one side of the sheet, trying it, realising my mistake, and cutting the other side, was the second misfire. Sadly, I had made the same mistake on the other side of the workshop when I was lining that. Here we are. It is now 5:15. I just had to do a quick run into town to rescue somebody whose car battery had gone flat because they'd left their lights on. Wasn't a long journey, it was a quick trip. But this afternoon, after I had finished putting that last panel on and making several mistakes in the process, I have now cleared these shelves and moved the shelves. I'm planning to put all the stuff that is now scattered around over here, most of which will go back into the shelves, some of it will not, but hopefully in a slightly more structured way than what it was before. There was structure to it before, but then things kept getting added in random places. So hopefully second time round we can be more organised than we were first time round. We shall see. Good morning. This is a quick round out for the changes that I made in the workshop. So as you can see, all of this back wall, there are wood shelves here, but all the other shelves have now been moved, which means it's much easier for me to store other things along here. And it also means that that wall gets air to it, which is important because there does seem to be a little bit of moisture coming through there. And now everything else is all around over here, which means I have quite a good space now in the middle here. Actually, if I come over this way, and you can see I still have timber and sheeting and stuff over there. Some of that's just going to be biffed, and that old drawer case is going to go as well, and probably the two drawers on the top of it. But I'm pleased with the way that's all worked out. It's much better set up, and I've ditched a few things, and so everything fits on the shelves much better, and it's just a lot tidier, and I know where stuff is now for the most part. So that's good. There are still things to be got rid of, either given away or sold or whatever. I'm working my way through some of those things, so that's good. So that's that little job done. Now on to much larger projects as part of the legacy of the cyclone that came through, really, but also other things to do with the rehash that we're going to do with our house, and the need to move services and things like that. So I've recorded some of that over the last week or so, but that won't be part of this video. So thanks for watching. See you later.